The Crossing is a new film that follows a group of Syrian refugees as they put their lives in the hands of people smugglers and make the dangerous crossing to Europe in search of a new life. That journey was life-threatening, and they'd been prepared for that. What they hadn't expected was the difficulty they'd face once they arrived. Let's take a look.
لما كنت بسوريا أنا كنت عايشة حياة كتير منيحة بمستوى كتير منيح. بعرف إنه رفقاتي عندي الناس اللي بحبهم. جيت لهون وأنا بعرف إنه أكيد جني معنا هون. بس ما كنت متوقع كل هالقد. إيه هلا أحياناً لهيك ما كتير أحيانا كتير وقت اللي بفكر يعني حالة إني قارن كيف كنت وكيف هلا بحد ذاتها كتير فيها وجع بس بتأمل يعني عندي أمل بإنه أقدر أرجع أعمل شيء أقدر أرجع مثل ما كنت ولو إنه بعرف إنه رح يكون صعب كتير تحديداً بهيك بلد أنت ما عندك علاقات فيه ما بتعرف لغته ما بتعرف بس رح حاول كتير إني.
Well, the director of that film, George Kurian, is with me now. And what we were seeing in that clip, George, was Angela, one of those who you were following. She is a journalist, or was a journalist in Syria, and now in Europe is trying to find work. One of the things that was very obvious from the film was that these people weren't fleeing a life in which their lives were in danger because they'd already made it from Syria to Egypt when you then met them and started filming them, and they're trying to escape from Egypt to Europe. Why make that decision?
They'd all come to Egypt, as you said, and were trying to make a life for themselves in Cairo. But over time, things got very hard for Syrian refugees in Egypt. Routine police harassment, the inability to find jobs, no civic guarantees, that allow you to live with a feeling of security. And when Egypt's dictator al-Sisi started making overtures to Bashar al-Assad, people really got scared and they thought this is not going to be safe for very much longer.
Okay. So this was a group of people who you met because you were living in Egypt at the time and you wanted to tell their story. An eye-opening conversation takes place in the film where you film the smugglers talking to them when they say, look, this is going to cost you 6,000 euros for us to get you over to Europe, but if the boat sinks, it's not our fault, is basically what they're saying.
It is, that is one of the crazier parts of the film where they actually say, if you drown, it's up to God, but if you reach safely, then thank us. And this is one of the hardest things about the journey, that it's the boats are they're not seaworthy at all. They're old fishing boats, sailed by people who've never sailed in the open sea. Quite often it's people who cannot pay the full fare that are then recruited to kind of sail. They literally said, they told, this is how the boat works, this is how you have to go, that's what you have to do.
So those sailing are themselves refugees?
Are themselves refugees without the money to pay the usual board.
Right.
And quite often these boats have problems in the open sea. The motors go off. Angela's husband came on a previous trip, and luckily he had an engineer on board, and they managed to, get the motor up and running again. By which time there was no water, there was no food. Little babies were beginning to, not even have enough water to have their milk, dry milk powder mixed in. It's harrowing.
Really harrowing. I mean, the conditions that we see on board the boat that the filming takes place in the film are awful. And yet, what strikes you is that people don't seem to lose their sense of humour despite those dreadful conditions. They keep going.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of the things that to watch, it's such a lesson that how humans come together. And quite often there's such a sense of humour about everything.
Yeah.
And I think it's just their way of staying together, knowing what they're embarking on, but knowing that to lose their spirits would actually be would just as dangerous.
Indeed, it's a sort of sense of normality amid this completely odd thing that they're going through.
Yeah.
And then they actually arrive in Europe, and it's very touching, those scenes when they're clearly just so relieved. They were actually rescued, weren't they, by an oil tanker that took them on to Italy, and they're so happy when they arrive there. And then reality kicks in when they realise that actually this isn't necessarily the land of milk and honey that they thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, given that none of my characters actually expected Europe to be the land of milk and honey, as it were, they kind of knew there'd be hardships. But quite often we expect that once refugees come into Europe, it's happily ever after for them. But it's actually a very Kafkaesque kind of existence that awaits them. This life of not knowing, which is quite torturous, actually. Where you don't know how long this process is going to take, what is going to happen to you. And all the while you've lost your sense of identity. You know, quite all of us, if you're asked, who are you or what are you, one of the first sentences would be what we do.
Sure.
But you're suddenly in a place where you've lost that identity. You don't know what will happen. And that really takes a toll.
And these were all professional people in Syria. What's the thing that you want to achieve from this film? What are you hoping it'll make people think? For
me, you know, I was bothered by the fact that all the time when we talk about refugees, we talk about them as this big phenomena, you know, as this mass of people. And it was very important for me to kind of put a face to it, to see who is leaving, why, and what are they hoping for. You know, because if you look at the right-wing narrative about it right now, is that these are a bunch of gold diggers just coming in to take our hard-earned life away and the rest of it. But
it's very clear from your film that these people felt they had no choice. It's a sobering watch. Thank you so much indeed, George Kurian, for coming on to tell us about it.